They told me Christmas was cancelled. Said Dad's medical bills had drained the budget. So imagine the look on my face when I showed up unannounced, only to find my entire family laughing around the dinner table, with my ex-fiancée sitting beside my brother. What happened next shocked everyone and changed our family forever. My name's Ryan, I'm 30, and I work as a paramedic in Montana. It's not glamorous, but I save lives and pay the bills. I don't say that to flex, just to set the scene. Because for 3 years I was with Marissa. We were engaged. I thought she was the one. That illusion shattered about 9 months ago. Marissa came home one night, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "I don't think this is working." I asked her to explain. She danced around it for over an hour until we'd both had a few glasses of wine. Then she said it. "I just don't see myself with a guy who's a paramedic forever. I thought you'd go to med school eventually. My friends are all with doctors and lawyers, and I'm with, well, you." That hurt. I'd always been upfront. Med school wasn't in the cards. I'd considered advanced paramedic training, sure, but not 4 more years of school and debt. Still, I let her go. People want what they want. After the breakup, my family rallied behind me. Or so I thought. My dad, Glenn, a retired accountant with early onset diabetes, gave me a whole speech about being the man and breaking it off before she could. My sister, Ivy, called Marissa shallow. And my older brother, Luke, always the golden child with his big-shot finance job in Denver, offered to help me move out of the apartment. But then, little things started feeling off. Like how Ivy changed the subject every time I mentioned Marissa. Or how Mom's voice got weird when I brought up switching names off the lease. Still, I didn't push. I just went on helping, sent my folks $600 every month for Dad's meds, watched Ivy's son Jax twice a week so she could have me time, and took unpaid days off work to help Luke move into his overpriced high-rise condo. The cracks started to show the day we helped Luke move. After we finished, we sat around his kitchen island eating takeout, and one of his friends joked, "Hey Reed, do paramedics get discounts on ambulance rides?" I laughed it off until Luke smirked and said, "Nah, he just drives the van. Maybe in his next life he'll be a real doctor." Everyone laughed. Except me. That moment stayed with me like a stone in my shoe. All the years I'd spent being the dependable one. And still, I was just the guy who drives the van. Fast forward to December. Mom texted saying Christmas dinner was cancelled due to finances. I felt bad. Christmas was her favorite time. So I offered to host. I'd even cover the cost. No, she said. We'll do something quiet in January. Just family. A few days later, Ivy accidentally texted me. Still good for Thursday night? Bring the snacks. I asked what it was about. She said it was meant for a friend. Weird. But I let it go. Until Christmas Eve. I decided to stop by my parents' house with takeout and presents. They live in a modest ranch house I've been helping maintain for years. I mow their lawn, fix their pipes, shovel their driveway. As I pulled up, I saw Luke's silver Tesla, Ivy's SUV, my aunt's Lexus, every car I knew. Through the frosted front window, I saw the dining table decked with fine china. Tree lit. Everyone laughing. And standing there, beside my brother, was Marissa, my ex-fiancée. I rang the doorbell. Mom answered, her face contorting like she'd seen a ghost. "Ryan? What are you doing here?" "I thought Christmas was cancelled," I said. My voice cracked halfway through. Inside, the party went dead quiet. Marissa clutched her wine glass. Ivy and Luke exchanged a glance. "And Mom?" she stammered. We pulled something small together last minute." "Small?" I said. "With china and champagne?" She stepped aside. "Come in, it's freezing." I looked past her. My dad was wearing the watch I spent hours fixing for his birthday. Mom wore the earrings I worked double shifts to afford. I stepped inside. "Actually," I said, locking eyes with Marissa, "I think I will come in." Everyone froze. I walked into the dining room. That's when it hit me. They all knew. They knew I wasn't invited. They knew Marissa would be there. They planned this behind my back. And suddenly I realized, this probably wasn't the first time. The moment I walked into the dining room, it was like a switch flipped. Everyone stopped moving. Forks paused midair, conversations froze in their throats. Even the Spotify Christmas playlist in the background seemed to grow quieter. It felt like I'd stepped into a museum exhibit, except I was the only one who didn't know I was on display. My Aunt Trish whispered something to my uncle, who suddenly became deeply invested in his mashed potatoes. My cousin Ellie, not subtle for a second, was already recording on her phone, trying to hide it behind a wine glass. Luke just leaned back in his chair, smug as ever, and sipped his whiskey like he'd won a bet. And Marissa? She looked down at her shoes. Someone want to explain what the hell is going on? I said. I wasn't yelling. My voice was calm, too calm, and that scared them more than if I'd flipped the damn table. My dad cleared his throat like he was stepping onto a courtroom floor. Now, Ryan, don't make a scene. A scene? I laughed. You all hosted a full-blown holiday party, without me. Lied to me. And invited my ex-fiancée. Who, by the way, dumped me because I wasn't wearing a white coat and six-figure salary. Luke decided this was the moment to chime in. He stood, placed a casual arm around Marissa's waist, and said with a smirk, Liv and I connected at the gym. These things happen. You guys were over anyway. I stared at him. 8 months ago, I said slowly. We broke up 8 months ago. Marissa looked up, guilt written across her face. Well, actually. And that's when it hit me. March. That was the month Luke suddenly got into fitness. That was when he asked a dozen questions about my relationship out of nowhere. That was when my mom started pushing me to end things. Take control, be the one who ends it, son, she'd said. I turned to my mom. How long? She went quiet. My dad stared at the floor. Ivy rolled her eyes. Oh my God, Ryan, stop being so dramatic. They've been talking since last summer. It's not like they did anything physical before you two broke up. That sentence landed like a slap. Last summer, when I was working doubles, saving up for a better ring, Marissa had kept dropping hints that hers wasn't very impressive. I had been breaking my body trying to build a future while she was texting my brother. And my family knew. They knew. And you knew, I said to my mom. You let this happen. You invited her tonight. Lied to me. Cancelled Christmas. She actually tried to spin it. Ryan, we thought it would be easier this way. Luke and Marissa just make sense. They have more in common. They're both ambitious. And I'm not. My voice cracked again, but this time with heat. I've been a paramedic for nearly a decade. I've delivered babies in moving ambulances, done CPR on drowned kids, hauled bodies out of wrecked cars in the dead of winter. Nobody said a word. Ambition isn't wearing a tie, I added. It's being willing to go back out after seeing your third fatality of the night. But they didn't care. Because in their world, status trumped substance. Then Dad opened his mouth again. We were going to have dinner with you tomorrow. Just the four of us. Quiet. Oh, I said. So I was the consolation prize. The leftover dinner. That tracks. My aunt tried to play the diplomat. Ryan, honey, just grab a plate. Let's all calm down. Are you serious? I turned toward the table. You expect me to sit down and break bread with my ex-fiancée, who's now dating my brother, and the family that decided I wasn't good enough to be part of this night? Luke scoffed. Bro, she needs someone who can provide. It's not personal. Some of us are meant to lead. Some to follow. Something inside me broke. Or maybe, more accurately, something finally snapped back into place. I stepped across the room, grabbed Luke by the collar of his cashmere sweater, which I'm 99% sure was knockoff, and shoved him hard against the wall. Say that again, I said through gritted teeth. Say it. He squirmed like a fish on dry land. Get off me, you psycho! My dad tried to break it up. In the chaos, Luke elbowed him square in the face. Blood burst from Dad's nose. Everything exploded. My mom screamed. My aunt started crying. Ivy stormed out. Luke stood there stammering. That was an accident. He attacked me. And for the first time in 30 years, my dad didn't take Luke's side. You hit me, he said, stunned. Because your brother called you out. Then came the real twist. You've been seeing his fiancée behind his back. Dad snapped at Luke. After everything Ryan's done for this family? You've been sneaking around with her? It was like the mask fell off. The golden boy was exposed. My mom stepped in. Don't act like you didn't know, Glenn. We all agreed this was better. And that was it. 32 years of marriage unraveled right there under a glittering Christmas wreath. The house turned into a war zone. And me? I stepped back from the fire, heart pounding, ears ringing, and realized this wasn't about Marissa. Not entirely. This was about decades of being the good son. The steady one. The reliable fallback who picked up the pieces. And they had thrown me out like old tinsel. But they forgot one thing. I knew where all the skeletons were buried. And this Christmas, I wasn't just going to light the tree. I was going to burn the house of lies they built. It wasn't the punch that broke me. It was the silence afterward. Not the quiet of the room. God knows there was plenty of yelling, but the silence of understanding. Of finally seeing, with perfect clarity, that I was never going to be more than a useful extra in this family's drama. Never the star. Never even truly cast. I walked outside to catch my breath. The air was sharp and bitter, the kind that stings your nose and makes your breath visible. I stood on the porch, staring out at the snow-covered yard I'd mowed every summer since I was 16, and I remembered something I hadn't thought of in years. When I was 17, I got nominated for the Montana EMT Young Heroes Scholarship. It wasn't just a certificate. Only 5 people in the entire state made it to final interviews. I told my parents. I remember the moment clearly. We were in the living room, and I held the letter like it was made of gold. My dad was distracted, checking stock updates on his phone. My mom smiled politely but asked, So, is that like a real scholarship? Still, they promised to drive me to the interview, maybe even grab lunch after. I was so excited I ironed my shirt 3 times and memorized my answers until 2 a.m. The next morning, Dad pulled out at the last minute. Luke has a career fair today, he said. It's big. Could set him up for internships. So I drove myself. 2 hours through a snowstorm, alone. I sat in the parking lot outside that interview building, trying not to cry, telling myself it didn't matter. That I didn't need them to show up to prove I was worth showing up for. I didn't get the scholarship. When I told them, Mom said, Well, maybe next year. Dad didn't even look up from his laptop. That was the moment I learned what it meant to be dependable, not appreciated. Back in the present, I heard the front door creak open behind me. Ryan, my dad said, voice low. I didn't know it would get this bad. I turned slowly. You knew enough. You knew they excluded me. You watched it happen. He looked at me then, not past me, not through me, but at me. Really at me. Like maybe for the first time. I didn't stop it, he admitted. No, I said. You encouraged it. You let Mom push me out. You let Luke get away with everything. There was a pause. Then something in his expression shifted. A flicker of guilt. Maybe regret. I should have stood up for you, he said. Years ago. I see that now. That moment was almost enough to break me again. But I didn't want apologies anymore. I wanted change. Inside the house, chaos still reigned. Ivy was crying about the mashed potatoes being ruined. Luke had disappeared into the guest room with Marissa. Mom was barking orders, trying to spin the situation like a PR crisis. I walked back in with a different kind of energy. Not fury. Not desperation. Just truth. I stood in the living room and raised my voice, not yelling, but commanding. Does anyone here want to know what I've actually done for this family? They all turned. Because for years, I've rearranged my life to help you people. I've covered bills when no one asked. Paid for prescriptions. Babysat. Fixed roofs. I missed my best friend's wedding to be at Luke's MBA graduation. Marissa peeked out of the hallway like a child caught sneaking cookies. Ivy scoffed. Why are you dragging all this up now? Because I've been dragged behind this family's train for 30 damn years. I snapped. And I'm done being the caboose. Then I turned to Mom. You say I struggled to find my path? I found it. I saved lives. Every day. While you were making snide comments about ambition, I was pulling crash victims from twisted steel. While Luke was bragging about bonuses he didn't earn, I was giving CPR to strangers. And you all act like that's less than what? Wearing a suit? She tried to speak, but I kept going. I've paid you over $6,000 in the last year for Dad's care. Bought Chloe's kid a laptop for preschool. Covered Luke's moving expenses. And when I couldn't even get invited to Christmas dinner, I realized I was nothing more than a wallet with a pulse to all of you. Everyone stared. No one dared to breathe. You think I'm dramatic? I turned to Ivy. You used to call me to fix your car, then posted Instagram stories at clubs the same night. You gaslit me when I said something was off with Marissa. And now you're what? Playing bodyguard for her? What do you even contribute? Don't talk to me like that. She snapped. I'm a single mom. And I've been a single everything. I fired back. Son, brother, uncle, paramedic, repairman, therapist, without asking anything in return. Until now. There was no applause. No dramatic violin swell. Just stunned silence. And in that silence, I felt something shift, not in them, but in me. I wasn't crying. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was free. I walked to the coat rack, picked up my jacket, and said calmly, Enjoy your Christmas. And just before I stepped out the door, I turned back. Oh, and don't worry about those automatic payments for Dad's meds. I've already canceled them. Luke, maybe you can sell that fake Rolex to help. The door clicked shut behind me. Outside, the cold air welcomed me like an old friend. I wasn't sure what came next, but for the first time in my life, it would be my decision. When I walked out that door on Christmas Eve, I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The next day, I worked a double shift at the hospital. A 6-year-old boy had choked on a toy and needed resuscitation. An elderly woman passed away holding my hand. I cleaned blood and vomit out of the back of my rig for the 5th time that week. And still, it felt more peaceful than that house ever did. I came home, ordered Chinese food, sat on my second-hand couch, and watched Die Hard for the 100th time. Because yes, it is a Christmas movie. And for the first time in my adult life, I didn't feel guilty about not calling anyone. The days that followed were a hurricane of guilt trips and passive-aggressive texts. Ivy posted some vague story about family being sacred. Luke texted me once. Thanks for ruining the holiday, man. My mom tried calling. 27 times. I didn't answer any of them. Except one. Dad sent a text, I moved out. Staying at the Redridge Marriott. I'm sorry, son. Truly. I didn't respond. Then the real fallout began. I canceled every financial connection I had to that family. No more $600 auto payments for Dad's medication. I removed Ivy as an authorized user on my credit card. Called the bank. Cut every tie. Then I sent one group message. You can now kiss your personal ATM goodbye. Figure out your own lives. Within the hour, my phone blew up. You can't just abandon us after everything we've done for you. What about Jax's preschool tuition? Your father's meds aren't going to pay for themselves. Do you want Grandma's death to be for nothing? That last one stopped me cold. I read it again. Do you want Grandma's death to be for nothing? What the hell did that mean? I hadn't thought about Grandma Jo in years. She'd passed away 5 years ago, just before I finished my EMT certification. We weren't close, mostly because she lived 2 states away, but she'd always been kind to me in the few visits we had. She once told me I had her eyes. Tired but kind. Later that week, a registered letter showed up. It was from a law firm. My pulse jumped for a second. Was my family suing me? No. It was about her estate. Turns out, Grandma Jo had left me a small inheritance. Nothing life-changing, but not pocket change either. $115,000. She'd written in her will. For Ryan, the one who never asked for anything but gave everything anyway. Use this for your future. Build something of your own. I sat down hard on the floor. The letter shook in my hands. Why hadn't I known about this? Then came the second part. The lawyer had been hired by my dad, as part of the divorce. During the financial separation, he discovered a hidden account my mom had managed. One I was never told about. She'd been dipping into it for years. I called the law office the next day. Yes, the woman said politely. Your mother accessed the account on numerous occasions. Most notably to co-sign for your brother's condo and to pay off part of your sister's car loan. I stared at the wall for what felt like a year. My grandma had saved money for me. Money I could have used to escape, to breathe, to build something for myself. And my mother, the woman who told me every year that there just isn't enough, stole it. For them. Not to pay off debt. Not to help with bills. To buy Ivy a luxury SUV. To fund Luke's lie of a life. I called my dad. Did you know about Grandma's money? No, he said. Not until we started the divorce. I only found out because her name was still on one of the accounts. Margaret, your mom, she never told me. Did she admit it? She said it wasn't stealing because it was family money. His voice cracked. She doesn't think she did anything wrong. And that's when it all clicked. That wasn't the first thing she'd taken. She'd taken my childhood, every moment where I needed a parent and got an excuse. She'd taken my identity, replacing it with the helper, the strong one, the one who won't complain. Now I had a number, $115,000. The price tag of my silence. The lawyer helped me recover the full amount, plus interest, through the divorce settlement. My dad insisted on it. Even if it comes out of my half, he said. I owe you that. For the first time in 30 years, he put me before anyone else. I moved to Colorado a few weeks later. Took a job on a mountain rescue team. Bought a beat-up cabin with the money. Fixed it up. Got a dog. Met a woman named Haley who's a vet and calls me a badass lifesaver every time I bring in a rescued animal. And for once, no one calls me because they need something. No one expects me to give them everything I have. The best part? I don't feel guilty about it. For months after the Christmas war zone, my life looked completely different. My cabin wasn't perfect, leaky roof, stubborn pipes, no cell service for miles, but it was mine. I'd traded in my beat-up Corolla for a reliable pickup, courtesy of the inheritance my mother had siphoned away. Every time I drove it, I thought of Grandma Jo. I hoped she was somewhere watching, proud that her money had finally landed where she intended. I worked mountain rescue now. It was a different kind of chaos. Avalanches, hikers who wandered too far, climbers who misjudged weather, but it felt real. Every life I helped save, every hand I grabbed just in time, reminded me that I mattered. And then, Haley came along. We met when I brought in a dog I found on the side of the road, badly injured, barely breathing. She saved the pup, and I got a dinner date out of it. Now Lucky, the 3-legged lab, lives with us. We moved in together last month. She doesn't care that I don't have a 6-figure salary. She introduces me to friends like I'm the coolest person she's ever met. I still remember when one of her vet techs asked what I did and Haley chimed in. He saves people in blizzards. No big deal. Sometimes, healing starts with someone just seeing you for who you are. I kept my phone off for weeks, But when I turned it back on, the messages were still there. Ivy's tone had shifted from guilt to rage. Luke sent one long, rambling apology that ended with, "I didn't mean for it to happen, bro." Mom was in full-blown victim mode, telling everyone I'd cut off the family out of nowhere and abandoned them in their time of need. But then came the final twist. Olivia. One cold March afternoon, she showed up at my cabin door. No call. No warning. Just mascara streaming down her cheeks, hair windblown, face pale. "Ryan, I need to talk to you," she said, clutching her coat like it was the only thing keeping her together. I almost shut the door. But curiosity, or maybe closure, kept it open a moment longer. "I'm pregnant," she said. "And I think it might be yours." I laughed. "Couldn't help it." "You're joking." "No," she said, voice shaking. "I did the math. It's about 3 months. And that last night, before we broke up." My eyebrows went up. "You mean the night before I found out you'd been texting my brother behind my back?" She looked ashamed. "I know how it sounds." "I don't think you do," I said, folding my arms. "Because I did the math. Luke and I? Not the only ones you were seeing. Your boss, right? The one you took that marketing retreat with in January?" Her mouth dropped. "How?" "Luke called me. Drunk. Said he found your texts. Said something about the Poconos?" She looked like she'd been slapped. "That's not fair. What's not fair is you showing up here now, after all this time, and trying to pin this baby on me when even you don't know who the father is." Tears welled again. I need help. Luke left. My boss won't acknowledge it. My job is on the line. I have no one. Not my circus," I said. "Not my monkeys." I closed the door. Didn't slam it. Just closed it like you'd close a chapter. Haley handed me a beer and raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay?" "Better than ever," I said, collapsing beside her on the couch. Lucky jumped into my lap and licked my face. We laughed, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years, peace. A few days later, Luke texted me. "Thanks for the heads up about Olivia. Dodged a bullet there." I didn't reply. My dad, though? We still talk. He apologized again, not with flowers or phone calls, but with action. He went to therapy. He paid me back every cent my mom had taken. He moved out of that toxic house, started managing his diabetes, and even flew out last month to help me fix my cabin roof. "I should have stood up for you sooner," he said over a cold beer. "You deserve better than we gave you." "You're trying now," I said. "That's what matters." My aunt still calls occasionally, gives me updates I never ask for. Ivy's working full-time now, scrambling without her free babysitter. Luke lost his condo and moved back in with Mom. Olivia's baby turned out to be her boss's, confirmed by a paternity test. She got let go from her job, moved in with her parents, and from what I hear is rethinking her life. I don't wish them harm. But I don't wish them anything. They finally had to learn to stand on their own 2 feet. And I'm standing taller than ever. I saved people before. But now, I saved myself. And if you're reading this and recognizing the patterns, if you're the fixer, the giver, the one they only call when they need something, I want you to hear me clearly. You don't have to light yourself on fire to keep everyone else warm. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is walk away. I'm Ryan. The forgotten middle kid. The reliable one. And now, I'm finally free.